Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing today? Are we having a good day? Are you having a good week? It's been another busy but beautiful one here. We've got some like little wisps of spring kicking in, which is awesome because I am sick of the winter. I don't know if anybody's noticed that. I am fed up with being cold and miserable. Well, being cold anyway. But yeah. So today I thought we'd have a quick chat about table saw blades. So you ready? Cool. Let's get into it then. Right then, so I don't advocate alcohol in a workshop unless it's the end of the day, and it's my workshop, so I can. Probably don't do it in your boss's thing. Oh, and if I'm having a little bit of a slurp of drink, opening my step two, as some would say, I'm not using power tools from here on out, right? I would never advocate having a beer and then using a power tool. Stupid. If you do it, say, oh, I saw Josh doing it. Don't chop your fingers off and say it's my fault. Okay, so, right then, table saw blades, right? What is important? The brand is not really that important, in so much as if you were to, so if somebody says, hey look, I want to buy a drill, right? I'm going to say, they're going to say, hey, I'm going to go to Screwfix, or I'm going to go online, wherever your equivalent is in the States, Screwfix, Home Depot maybe, and say, which one of these should I buy, Josh? Doesn't really matter. If you're just going to use it for putting up shelves, putting up some blinds, maybe putting together some furniture, doing a little bit of work outside, it genuinely doesn't really matter. They're all pretty much the same for you. If they were to say, hey look, I'm going to go to and buy like a super Harbour Freight, like super duper cheap Harbour Freight, or a super duper cheap like B&Q, or like an IKEA drill, don't do that, because that's throwing money away, right? That's dropping it down the pan. But in terms of like, hey look, I've reached this level, so much as like DeWalt, Makita, Milwaukee, all those sorts of things, doesn't really matter. It's sort of like when people sit there and say, oh, should I get the Festool? And I'm like, what are you going to be doing with it? How much use do you get out of it? Oh, maybe 20 minutes, like a month. I don't think you need to spend 600 to £1,000. I love Festool, it's really nice gear, but I don't really think most people need to do it. So back to the point then, table saw blades, right? So I have just sat there and said the brand doesn't really matter, and then I'm about to point out that I only ever normally buy one type of brand. That's not because I think that they're personally better, it's because they have all the boxes ticked for what I need, right? So if you look at this, can you see that? So as you can see, right, these are Axminster Excalibur blades. They are 254mm in diameter. They have a 30mm bore on them, so that matches my table saw. And they have the right tooth and the right number of teeth and the right grind in them. If you want a proper, like, what is the best table saw blade, explain table saw blades to me, have a look at our Birch Plywood Pro Tips, can't remember what it's called, video, I'll link it in the description. That's really what you want to be watching, because I sit there and I talk about some of the different grinds and stuff from memory. Yeah. If you want me to do a proper one, like a proper ripping it all apart and talking about it, just let me know in the comments and maybe I'll be able to do that. So anyway, getting back to the point, right? So best brand doesn't really matter. What does matter about a table saw blade? So first off, you want to make sure that you've got the right diameter, right? So first off, you need to make sure it's the right diameter. So if it's a 10-inch machine, you want a 10-inch blade or a 254mm blade. Then you need to know what your arbor diameter is. So for this one, 30mm, right? Which is like 1.25 inches maybe. And then those are the two most important things. And then you need to know how many teeth do you need and what grind do you need. And that is all dependent on the materials that you're cutting. So say for example, if I'm ripping down a bunch of 2x4s, I'm not going to use the same blade as the blade that I'm going to be using for cutting all my birch ply down, cross-cutting across the grain, right? In terms of your tooth grind and stuff, I think for a general multi-purpose, you want to go with like maybe like an ATB, if you, which is an alternate top bevel grind. If you're going to be using it to cut sheet goods, you're going to be using it to cut MDF, you're going to be using it to cut most timber. ATB is fine, really. We use 60 teeth just because our machine is 3 horsepower, so it can cope a little bit more than maybe the 1500 watt or 2 horsepower machines can. And I find personally the 60 tooth gives you a better finish. Now, would I want to rip timber down with that all day long, like rip 2x4s in half? Probably not. I'd probably want to go for like a 40 or a 48 tooth. But that's just me, right? These blades, these are the pro blades, and they're like 90, 100 quid, which isn't cheap. But you can sharpen them, so we send them off to get sharpened for like 12, 13 pounds, so it's not too bad. I mean, obviously the tooth count does have does make a difference. You know, if you're going to be, it does make a difference in terms of like how quickly you can cut and the materials that you can cut, but it's obviously going to make a difference on the finish, right? So for us, speed isn't as important as the finish that you're going to get from your cut. Okay, it's just that simple. Speed is important when you're trying to run a business, but I always look at it as if if going slow in one aspect of a build means that I've saved lots of time in another aspect of the build, and that's good enough for me. So going slower in terms of like cutting and trimming down means that I don't have to do as much finishing, and I'm a happy guy because I am not a massive fan of sanding if I can get away with it. So there's a couple of things to really, well, a couple of questions, a couple of things to cover maybe. Is that what I'm trying to say? Yeah, I guess so. Cutting curve, does it really matter? Yes and no. Again, this is all my opinion, and my opinion might mean jack to a lot of people, but for those that are interested, cutting curve isn't really too much of an issue, in so much as I'm not going to want a thin curved blade, because the blade can have a tendency to wobble, it can deflect, which is then going to ruin the finish on your cut. So if you're doing a lot of sheet materials, you're doing a lot of thicker materials, personally, right, obviously if you, yeah, I'm going to go with a thicker blade, so I'm going to go with like these ones are like a 3.2 mil, that's fine for us. I don't think, I've got like a 2.4 mil blade or something like that, and it is, you can see more, is it striations in the cut, is that the word? You can see more where the teeth have cut into the timber as opposed to these ones where it's a bit of a finer finish. So I guess if you're interested in what makes a blade to look at, if you like really green to it, then Freud, they make good blades. I've used a few of them, and I use one of them on my, or used to use one of them on my Shapak, my plunge saw. But for the most part, we just use the Axminster Excalibur ones, mainly because we've tried them, we've tested them, we've abused them, we get them sharpened, and I get them on 24-hour delivery if I need another one, or I trash this one. I say trash this one. I've got 3 or 4, and they go through a rotation. So that's something to bear in mind. Is that yes, we use ours a lot, and I mean like we use ours a lot for engineered materials, but yeah, we do get them sharpened all the time. So yeah, there you go. Quick, simple run through. Does the make of a table saw blade really matter? No, as long as you're getting a half decent one. Top tip: you get a table saw, you get a plunge saw, track saw, circular saw. Rip the blade out of it and put a decent one in, because that thing will be made to a price, and that price is going to be cheap. Not frugal, but cheap, right? Cheap is cheap. So yeah, so make sure you rip that one out, stick a new one in. But if you go with a quality name, so Freud, Axminster, something like that, or the Excalibur from Axminster, and then, like, I guess that's as much as you need to focus on that. What you then need to focus on is the material that you're going to be cutting, and then if you know your material, once you know your materials, or a general idea of the materials that you're going to be using, then you need to be looking at making sure it's the right size blade for your machine, so right diameter, right arbor diameter, and then the most important thing really, from after you've figured all that out, making sure it will fit, is making sure that the tooth count and the grind is right for the machine that you're going to be using. Or no, once you've got all that sorted, then the thing that you need to be paying attention to is to make sure that the teeth count and the grind is going to be right for the application that you're using it in. And you can get combi blades, you can get different options. but I tend to go, like I said, with an ATB grind and something in the 40 to 60 teeth range. If I'm doing a bunch of sheet materials, it'll probably be the 60. If I'm doing a bunch of timber work, it'll probably be like a 40 or a 42, something like that. But yeah, real simple. Happy to have a chat with you more about it. Happy to drop the link into the description on the birch plywood videos, so talking about how to cut veneer boards and the blades I use for that. So, real quick, simple run through. What do you reckon? Do you think I'm talking rubbish? Do you think I'm on the mark with it? Are you one of those people that gets hung up on brands and name brands? Are you somebody who doesn't care? Do you think I'm talking rubbish? I love it when people think I'm talking rubbish. By all means, stick it in the comment below. If you do think I'm talking rubbish, don't just call me an idiot. Say why you think I'm an idiot. That would be awesome. I'd love to have a laugh with that. Happy to reply to you, as long as you're not being too much of an idiot, right? Keep it relatively PG-13, right? And yeah, I'd love to know what your comments are below. If you are interested in the content that I'm making, please let me know below. If you'd prefer if I did something else, let us know, because it's all about giving back. If you enjoyed the video, hit the odd thumbs up, because it massively helps me out. If you've stayed this long, you may as well subscribe, because I mean, you're still here. And yeah, I guess if you've stayed this long, you may as well hit the notification bell, and then YouTube will let you know when I post the video. Alright, I hope you've enjoyed it. You have an awesome day, and I shall catch you on the next one, alright? See ya!